Hit it, hit it.
Well, hello there, and welcome to the Stitch Sampler Baby Blanket project videos. I'm excited to share this project with you because it's one of my most favorite designs that I have done before. This particular project, you're going to learn so many things. There are a variety of stitch patterns. You're going to learn how to join the squares together, how to add on a border, how to weave in ends. On top of that, you're going to learn how to not only read a pattern by the words, but how to use a chart so that you can see how the stitches you're actually creating with your crochet hook and yarn are represented in a crochet chart. So if you've never used charts before, but you're a little bit terrified to do that, don't worry, you're not the only one. Not only does this pattern or this project have charts included for each one of the stitches, it also includes all the words. So you have a chance to use the words and refer up to the chart to gradually become a little bit more efficient with charts. This class is one of my #1 classes when I teach around the country, and I always have my students leaving the class saying, this is the best class ever, it's the best teacher ever. And so I figured I would start off with this project to show you guys how you can learn to be more efficient and wonderful crocheters. So let's get a little bit idea of what you need to complete this project. I'm going to scoot the blanket right out of the way here. For this particular project, we use just a regular worsted or Aran weight yarn, and I used Red Heart with Love. And you're going to use a size 5, a size 6, and maybe even a size 4mm crochet hook. The reason I'm giving you a variety of sizes is as you create each block, you want the finished block to be roughly the same size as all the other blocks. So there are going to be times when changing your hook size to get the correct gauge, and gauge is going to be whatever you think it should be, meaning if you're using a 6mm crochet hook and you're getting this beautiful square and you think that's perfect, you're like, I want all my squares to be this size. I want you to use different size hooks for all your other squares if you need to change them to create all your squares to be that perfect size that you found. So if gauge is something that terrifies you, you have a lot of leeway with this. You don't have to get my exact gauge because it's the gauge that you think you need to have to make the blanket perfect for you. Does that make sense? I hope so. So I'm going to set this yarn and pull the hook aside. On top of the hook and the yarn, you're going to need the pattern. And the pattern we use is the Crochet Stitch Sampler Baby Blanket pattern. And I called it a stitch sampler because that's exactly what it is. As I was designing a project, I started having a bunch of different gauge swatches laying around my house. And I thought to myself, how cool would it be to put together these swatches and create a cool blanket? Hence, we have the Stitch Sampler Blanket. I was teaching myself how to do basket weave, how to do a fan trellis, a fantail, the cross hatch, long waves, bobbles, a single crocheted rib, Catherine's wheel, and a blooming granny square. And I just like, those are just really pretty stitches. So when I made the pattern, I wrote each of these squares out with the correct multiples to get you roughly the same size square for each stitch pattern. So even though there's the basket weave that creates a stitch pattern that tends to be a little bit more dense and pulled in, especially when compared to the fan trellis, the way I wrote the pattern, and when you change your crochet hooks to make sure that they're about the same size, you're going to get the perfect size block. It's no problem. You can find this pattern at marleybird.com. There's going to be a link right there. You see that link? Click on that. Go get this pattern. You're going to love it. You'll be able to follow along this pattern and complete the in-class block, which is the block you're going to use to kind of test out the stitches and learn what it is that you're going to be making and decide if it's the stitch pattern you really want to use. In the same instructions in the pattern, you'll find the full block or the finished block. And that's going to be the square that you use, or the measurements or the chain stitches that you use for your finished square to complete the blanket. So there's 2 sets of instructions in here. And as I mentioned before, there are charts, there are written instructions, and there's an explanation on chart symbols. So this is a great little pattern. It's so much more than a pattern, you guys. You could very easily call this a book, and you'll want to have it. The regular notions that you're going to need, just like any other pattern, you're going to need a set of scissors and a darning needle, and for me, you want to have at least 3 removable stitch markers. I use stitch markers just about all the time when I'm working a stitch pattern, whether it's for a garment, for a blanket, or for an accessory. I feel like they are very useful to make sure that you have nice clean edges, and in each square I show you exactly where you'd want to place your stitch marker and why. So make sure you have at least 3. I could even go as far as to say have at least 3 for each square. So that way if you wanted to make each square all at the same time, like work a little bit here and then you get bored, okay, I'm going to work a little bit here, you don't have to undo your stitch markers over here to move them over here. Does that make sense? These are relatively inexpensive. They can be found at any sort of big box store or yarn store, so you can find these no problem. Just make sure they are removable. I know that there are people who like to use safety pins for that purpose. I'm going to caution you that when you use a safety pin, the coil at the bottom of the safety pin actually can snag your yarn. So unless you are very careful, I would say these are great because there's no coil at the bottom. All right, so those are perfect to use. That's it, you guys. That's all you need to make this blanket. The pattern, the yarn, the hook, the notions, and then you have me. That's the most valuable tool at this point. You have this wonderful set of videos that I have taken the time to put together, and I've given you tips and tricks. I'm going to show you how to read a chart, how to use the written instructions to refer to the chart, and I compare the actual piece that I'm crocheting along with you with the chart so that hopefully you can get a visual of what you're making with the chart, and it will help you clear up the matrix. You'll hear me say that a couple times in these videos. You don't have to follow the same sequence that I teach the videos in. If you decide that you want to jump to block number 9 before you do block number 1, that is totally fine. Each of these videos can stand alone and you can make them in whatever order you want. I will be placing them in the order that I think they should be done based on skill level. I'm going to start at the beginner level and work it up to a little bit advanced beginner to an intermediate. Thinking that as you're a beginner crocheter and you want to work your skills along to become an even better crocheter, I'm going to hold your hand and work you along that way to do that. We wrap it all up with a beautiful border that it's intense. There's a little bit of everything in this border, but when it's all finished, it's just that something special that ties together all of this work you've done, putting together these 9 squares, and it's something you're going to be proud of. Whether you're keeping it for yourself, giving it to somebody in your family, or you're using it for a baby shower gift, you're going to be very pleasantly surprised with the results you have. And you're going to have a lot of people who are going to be inviting you to other baby showers, hoping they get one as well. So this is a great gift to learn. All right, so let's get started. Let's jump in. Click on whichever square you want to begin on, and we can get started. Catch you later.